Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's July 4th and no, I wasn't going to do one of these today. As a matter of fact, with what I put out last time, I just wanted things to kind of settle down and watch and see what happens. But this thing in Egypt is fairly significant because I don't think it was expected by the Obama administration or the New World Order. As you saw what happened in Iraq, certainly Saddam Hussein was a dictator. He'd done some terrible things to the Kurds, but by and large he was able to keep opposing factions in check, a lot like Tito did in Yugoslavia between the Serbs, Croats, and Bosniaks. So sometimes when we replace a dictator, we become that dictator because the dictators are in their part of the world and they know how to keep their people under control. And we shouldn't want to go in there and replace that dictator and then find out that we have to do as bad as or worse than they did. But of course that's the plan. So we did that in Iraq, and look at the mess that Iraq is in now. Al-Qaeda wasn't in Iraq before we went there. And there was certainly not the death and destruction that there has been ever since. Same thing, well, Afghanistan is always a problem. You're never going to fix Afghanistan. People go in there with the ideas of taking over, but you never really can. And of course, all we're doing there now is protecting basically the poppy fields for the CIA. And I know there are those of you who get upset about that, but it's just the facts. Then we go into Libya and we replace this Muammar Gaddafi strongman who has been our nemesis off and on. But look what we have there. Look at the racial and the ethnic and the religious persecution and destruction and death and genocide that's been going on there. And we armed Al-Qaeda to go into Libya. And then of course you know about the Benghazi thing, okay? And I know, remember I told you I tell you, and what I'm going to tell you, then I tell you what I tell you, then I tell you what I did tell you. So I have a habit of this, but I'm just summing all this up because of something I want to say about Egypt. So then the Obama administration then does all this stuff at Benghazi to slip weapons over into Turkey and Syria for what they say are Syrian rebels, but it's really Al-Qaeda who aren't even Syrians. They're bringing in these foreign fighters to do that. And so then we have this guy in Egypt, this Muslim Brotherhood. Why would the United States put the Muslim Brotherhood in power in Egypt? Why would we put people sympathetic to Al-Qaeda in power anywhere? Because it's eternal tension. That's probably a wrong word. I'm going to change that a little bit. And there's actually a technical name for it. But the idea is that you keep everything in tension. Sorry, I forgot the actual term. But in perpetual tension. And then you can take advantage of it. It's like I said, when you have a bar fight and cops don't go in right away, they wait till people beat each other up a little bit and then go in. But the real idea is to set up enemies for the future so that the military-industrial complex can continue doing what they're doing. So in other words, they're not out there protecting you in your God-given rights. They're not there to protect the Declaration of Independence, our service people, our military, our government, doing all these things around there to protect that, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the people. No, they're there to foment these wars and revolutions for their own benefit and eventually to drain us to the point where they can totally take us over because international bankers control the people that run this country. Just look at McCain. Does anything he does make any sense to anybody with a half a brain? Just as an example, so I'm not racist. It's not just Obama. Bush did the same stuff, and all these guys should be indicted for war crimes. But I diverge again. So what is it that happened in Egypt? Okay, well, the CIA got in there, and the United States government, and all these things, and they made it look like the people wanted this Muslim Brotherhood. Really. And they couldn't keep control because, in fact, the people there don't want that. okay? Any more than the people in Syria want it, or the people in Libya wanted it, or the people in Iraq wanted it. So why does the United States use it? Because it sets up the next war. The only reason. It's not to free them or make them, you know, get them to have a democratic republic or anything like it. So the people see all these abuses of the government with the Muslim Brotherhood, Morsi and all these guys, and they take to the streets, millions of them, just like they did in Brazil over the financial problems in Brazil. Sorry, there's a little wind here now, so I'm going to speak up. So as I said in one video, you have all these little people, the weak things of the earth, coming forth and demanding change. And what do the Americans do when their government's doing all this stuff? They think they're celebrating Independence Day. They think they're out here celebrating freedom. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Most Americans don't know what Independence Day is about anymore. They don't know about the Declaration of Independence, what it says, or the Constitution, or the Bill of Rights. I actually know people, and I should take the camera and ask them, because people have actually told me, people that I know, people that should know better, and I say, well, do you know what 4th of July is all about, Independence Day? Wasn't it something about the Civil War? Oh, it's a celebration of our vets from World War I. I'm serious. People have told me this. And I diverged again. So, the people in Egypt, people in Brazil, other places, but I'm talking about Egypt right now, saw this oppression. And it was American inspired. It was US inspired. The beacon of liberty that's turning its back on everything that it ever stood for. And I'm not saying it's been perfect. And I know for a long time, I mean, the Spanish-American War, you know, the wars against the Native Americans, I know all that. But the documents that formed this country, the principles were still good, even though evil men used them unjustly or ignored them altogether. So these people in Egypt demanded a change. And the United States was going to send troops there to force those people to accept the change they didn't want. But too many of them rose up, millions of them. And the military started looking at the Egyptian military and said, man, we got to keep an eye on this. And then what did Morsi do? He started pushing the United States line of, we have to make regime change in Syria. And that's when the Egyptian military said, the people don't want it, and we don't want it. Well, our military is here to secure the borders of Egypt. We want nothing to do with American interests in taking down Syria and Assad, and especially giving it over to these morons that kill thousands of villagers who are Christians, well, I don't know if Jews they've killed, but many Christians in Syria, beheading them, murdering whole families, beheading people. Yeah, we really want those people running Syria, don't we? Yeah, of course we do. Because then we can say, look at these bad guys in a few years. Look how bad they are. And the American people will conveniently forget that it was our government that put them in there. So what's happened is that the Egyptians understand freedom, they understand liberty, and they understand corruption when they see it, and do something about it when the Americans sit here on their duffs, on their hands underneath their butt, and blindfolds on their eyes. And earphones in their ears listening to their favorite, you know, BS. So no, I'm not celebrating Independence Day. I'm actually going to go have a few beers with some friends, and we're going to talk about all this nonsense. Because I'm not going to the fireworks display. That's all nonsense now. That's all been lost on everybody. They don't even know what they're doing. I'll bet you not one person around here where I am right now is going to talk about all those men who suffered the loss of their families, their properties, and even their lives. A lot of them were hung that signed the Declaration of Independence. Did you know that? Oh no, we're going to go watch fireworks, eat hot dogs, you know, play croquet. No understanding whatsoever. No, you're going to find out pretty soon. So at any rate, Egyptians, Brazilians, people around the world are starting to see the evil that's coming from this empire here. And they've known it for a while, but they're finally getting to the point where they're getting sick of it. America, when are you going to be sick of it? Well, I'll tell you. You know, I said that something's going to happen here pretty soon. This thing in Egypt backed them off. I'm not saying it stopped it. I'm not looking for excuses, okay? Because I know that this thing is being set up. But I also know, as I said, timetables have to be somewhat fluid, especially with this uprising in Egypt. This took them by surprise, I think. They didn't think it would go there. And so, you know, they can't go after something else until they start quelling some of these other problems. I'm not saying it still won't happen, because it could any day, especially if the American people start really waking up in droves like that. Well, they really are. They're starting to wake up. It's just they haven't gotten to the point where they're going to do something about it yet. You don't have enough people doing what I'm doing, getting on YouTube and yelling and screaming, going to their congressmen and senators and saying, you guys are criminals. Yes, I have done that. Okay, I've actually met with them and done that. Okay, well, all right, so we've got a problem here. We have a world, like I said, that no longer believes us because we lied to them. We've allowed our leaders to lie to them. I still believe in the Democratic Republic, backed up by the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and that charter document, the Declaration of Independence. But like I've said many times, we have that little label on the bottle, but the contents have been changed. So, we need to do something, America. I don't want to see this mass murder happening that's going to occur here in the U.S. It's going to happen, whether by inside maneuvers by our government and black ops like we saw in the Boston bombing and 9/11, and something even bigger like this thing I was talking about the other day where they could make a natural disaster that's man-made, or just overtly drop a nuclear weapon somewhere or gas. Who knows? All those are, pardon me, definitely possibilities. And I think if we got vocal, we'd see a lot more of that. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't act. So anyway, I've gone on too long on this. I just wanted to let you know that this thing in Egypt is probably a play on the table that they weren't quite prepared for. Amazingly, God moves in mysterious ways sometimes. Take advantage of it and make your preparations. Don't ever stop making preparations and talking to people and trying to do some good. And keep watch on what's going on. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about this thing with Putin and Snowden, because something happened here that was really, really crazy. Did you hear why Putin said that Snowden couldn't stay in Russia? Because Putin wanted Snowden to agree that he would no longer put out information that would endanger American interests. What? The Russians don't want anyone to do anything that would endanger American interests? You know what? I think if that doesn't prove that the international cartels control almost everybody on the playing field, I don't know what does. Putin wants to stay in power, and he'll do anything he needs to do that. Since when would the Russians be concerned about somebody who might endanger American interests? Telltale information there. And I'm sure there's more than that meets the eye. All right. Get in the face of your leaders every single day if you can. And I'm just going to say this. I was on the radio show, Blog Talk radio show the other night, Heads Up Warriors. And, you know, there's a lot of hope that we can change things. I don't share that. And I think that most of you know that that's the case. As I've said before, I'm not doing this for a popularity contest. I'm not doing this because I want to make money from it. I would like to save the lives of my family and loved ones and friends and, you know, people I don't know who are good people. but I'm not even certain that that's going to happen. My bottom line for doing it was so that nobody, and I've said this before, nobody could say to me, Roy, you knew, why didn't you say something? Well, gee, guys, if I'd done that, I'd been sticking my neck out, you know. People don't like to hear this stuff, and if you don't get it 100% right, they want to chop your head off, or they want to pull your toenails out, or they want to call you names, you know, hang you up in effigy. No, I don't want that. Well, I think I would rather God say to me, Roy, you did what you said you were going to do. You promised to try to send out the word. Somebody called it being a watchman, you know, on the tower. You were a watchman on the tower, and you called the alarm. So you're not responsible. The blood and sins of this generation are not yours. I was selfish in that regard. Who else can we trust? Can't trust these guys walking around in flesh and bone, and blood. You know, they take advantage of anything the first chance they get. So anyway, I'll leave it there for today. It was just, I wanted to make a comment on this situation in Egypt because it was an anomaly. It was an event that they did not anticipate to go the way it did. So I think it's sent them reeling to some extent, and they've got to decide what they're going to do about it. Maybe nothing. Maybe they'll just turn it all right back on us. So, as I always say, keep your eyes on the horizon and your ears to the ground. Stay awake, stay alert, and stay safe.